There is shocking testimony by the defense in the subway killer trial. Let me ask you, is Daniel Penny a hero or a killer? Well, this shocking testimony may help you determine in your own mind the answer. This and a whole lot more on this episode of Charlie Crime Buster. Yep, it's what some people are calling, or they're calling it, the fastest minutes in podcasting.
The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of the individuals interviewed or participating and do not represent those of city, county, state, or federal law enforcement agencies, nor sponsors and platforms of this presentation. Charlie Crime Buster, CharlieCrimeBuster.com, and PeacemakerNetwork.com are copyrights owned by Charlie Crime Buster. All individuals described or mentioned in the presentation should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law. This presentation contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
Well, hello and welcome to this part 3 of the episode of the Daniel Penny trial. Today, we're going to reveal shocking testimony that came out of the defense phase of the trial. But first, let me invite you as a new listener or a seasoned listener to reach out with a shout-out. That's right, reach out with a shout-out. You can reach me, CharlieCrimeBuster, at gmail.com, CharlieCrimeBuster@gmail.com. You can ask questions. You can make suggestions about other episodes. You can even lodge objections. Yep, you can disagree with us. It's a safe zone. You can disagree with what we're saying. We would love to hear from you either way. Reach out with a shout out. Hey, if you even just want to reach out and say, hi, Charlie, we'd love to hear from you. CharlieCrimeBuster@gmail.com. And by the way, if you'd like to support the program, we'd like to invite you to just jump right on over there to PeacemakerNetwork.com. There you're going to find we talk about the men and women who run toward danger instead of away from danger. Yep, we're talking about those brave men and women of the military, talking about the first responders, and of course, the cops, law enforcement. You read all about how we help those, and you can help us help those, and also help the podcast by becoming a badge, BADGE supporter. Read all about that at PeacemakerNetwork.com. And if you'd like to get caught up on the other episodes, just jump right over to CharlieCrimeBuster.com. You'll find a whole bunch of episodes there of a lot of true crime. If you're a true crime junkie, that is the website for you, CharlieCrimeBuster.com. All right, we got some of our housekeeping out of the way. By the way, we're going to make that very easy for you. Right there in the show notes. In the show notes, we're going to have little links there. All you got to do is click, and you're already there. Hey, thank you for being a part of the Charlie Crime Train today. Now let's get right to the heart of the matter. Well, it's been nearly a year and a half since Jordan Neely, a 30-year-old homeless man, died after the 24-year-old former Marine Daniel Penny, well, he came to the aid of others, placed Neely in a chokehold. Neely later died, and the district attorney of New York, well, he's charged Penny now, second-degree manslaughter, a whole bunch of other charges, which carries a penalty of between 5 and 15 years in prison. You know, it is amazing to many that a man who rushed to protect others on the subway may have to go to prison. And just like I said last week, it was only when the politicians and the rush to the race card, well, that all caused these charges to suddenly develop. Now, prior to that, the police had questioned Penny, released him. I believe that law enforcement really had no intention of charging him until the district attorney, the district attorney, came to push those charges. In fact, my friend, there was a former police commissioner. He called Daniel a hero, said it's ridiculous that he's being charged in the first place. Well, there are others that disagree, including the medical examiner, who stated boldly, even if Penny had enough fentanyl in him to knock down an elephant, she said it was a chokehold that Penny placed him in that caused his death. And the prosecution is claiming that Penny, well, he used excessive force in subduing Neely. Now, get this, prosecutors are not trying to prove that Penny intentionally tried to kill Neely. Instead, they allege that he went too far by holding the neck too long, violating law and human decency, quote unquote. Now the prosecution, they've already had their time before the jury, and they've rested their case. And this past week, though, the defense put on their side of the story. Now the court is in recess for the Thanksgiving holidays. And the attorneys, well, they're going to do their closing arguments on December the 7th. That's Pearl Harbor Day, isn't it? Well, let's get you up to date on the defense side of the story. You see, and in the midst of all of that, there was a bombshell witness. That witness knocked the props right out from the prosecutor's star witness. Tell you about that on into the program. Well, during the first days of the defense proceedings, Penny's attorneys, they brought character witnesses to the stand. They were going to talk about what a good guy Daniel is and was. In fact, his attorneys, they brought 6, not 1, but 6 character witnesses during the first 2 days of their presentation. It included, people who were part of the family and, of course, those men that he served with as a U.S. Marine. You see, Penny served 4 years in the Marines. He was a Green Belt in the Marine Corps' martial arts program, and he had learned several blood chokes. Those things are designed to cut the blood flow to the brain and render someone unconscious, not dead, but unconscious. They even brought his martial arts instructor, Joseph Caballer. He had testified for the prosecution. And then there was even a childhood friend, and he said that Penny was known for being kind, too kind. A man who served with him in the very same unit, he said that Penny had reputation for being above reproach. And that as Marines, listen to this, they were taught to value life. Remember last week I told you? You see, when Penny came to the rescue of those people, he was coming to the rescue because he was a Marine, and Marines are taught to value life. But then the defense, they turned around and began to talk about Neely. Yep, Neely. They brought out all of his health history. Even had a medical expert for the defense. Dr. Alexander Barty testified that Neely was likely experiencing a psychotic event when he boarded that subway car last year. There was actually a 50-page extraction of Neely's medical history. They went all the way back, about 6 years, and they showed all those interactions that he was having with the city's health system. More than a dozen times he was placed into the hospital. In some instances, Neely, he asked for help with medicine for his mental issues. Others, he was described as being hungry, cold. And they also reported that he was actually seeing, he was hearing voices. That's dangerous, don't you think? Voices that may say, kill that person, kill that person. He also was reported being afraid of people because he thought all people around him wanted to attack him. They were jealous of him. And the records, they also say that in his hospital time, they said that he had a lack of support from family. That's what the people wrote in their reports, that he was depressed about being homeless. And then there is the drug abuse. Yep, the drug abuse of K2. By the way, a very, very powerful drug, more like cocaine in many ways. The record showed that there was something in the background that was not coming before the jury, but is coming for the citizen shadow jury. You see, there's something else that was taking place during the time of this trial, and I want to bring that to you. Yep, I want to bring something else that's happening in the background right now that should say a lot of things to you and I as we try to put this together in our own mind. And I'm going to share with you about that in just a moment. But right now, it's time for something that we call Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook Story. It's a way that we kind of lighten the load of some of the dark things that we share. So right now, this is Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook Story of the Week. Well, now, for most people, prison would be something you escape from and never look back to, particularly if you find yourself in jail one day. But there are these prisoners back in Texas. You see, they thought that they needed a little more than they usually get, there in prison. In other words, even though they are able to order certain stuff, there are certain comforts that they really don't have. And this comes to us from the Dallas News. Talks about an inmate who was locked up there in the federal facility there in Beaumont. And he found himself sneaking out of prison, but not sneaking out to go on the run. Only to sneak out to get booze, tobacco, snacks, food to bring back with him. Since probably food in prison isn't really that good, right? And it wasn't just one incident. You see, inmates apparently have been using a back door there in this jail to skip out to land nearby. And there they pick up contraband left behind for them. And then they come right back. It was Sheriff's Deputy Marcus McClellan who recently told the Beaumont Enterprise, he said, inmates have essentially been making their own in and out privileges there since very day one. Yeah, this has been happening for some time, it appears. You see, it was sheriff's deputies in Jefferson County. They finally realized what was happening. So then they thought that they would just kind of lay in wait, watch it all go down. And so around 5:45 p.m., they noticed a duffel bag was dropped off at property right there near the prison. You see, that was 5:45. They didn't have to wait long, though, because around 7:30 p.m., 27-year-old Joshua Randall Hansen, he was observed leaving the prison. They watched him as he went out there and grabbed that bag. And, on his way back, they said, surprise, 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 he was arrested. Now, once they took the bag in, they said that duffel bag, it was full of alcohol. Whiskey and brandy, actually. And all kinds of tobacco, snacks, fruits, and plenty of home-cooked good food. Now, Hansen, poor old Hansen, you see, he was already there, serving a little over 2 years. There he was conspiring to distribute designer drugs. But now he's going to do a little more time because now he faces escape. Yep, escape. And then he came right back. And also he had a marijuana possession charge with him added to it. So here are these prisoners who put this one guy up to going out and getting loot. That loot gets arrested. And he's actually doing more time now because of his charges. So this crazy crook who escaped prison, but no, he came back. He came back with contraband. He is indeed Charlie Crimebuster's crazy crook of the week. Well, now back to our main focus. Something is going on that's catching the attention of a lot of us who are observing and paying close attention to this trial. There are stories that are floating around, one like the killing spree of Ramon Rivera. It kind of reminds us of the danger that folks were facing on that subway train. Now, probably nobody could have predicted that Ramon Rivera would allegedly go on a stabbing spree in broad daylight. And this just recently happened. 1 month after he got out of jail. And as a result of it, he killed 3 people. Yep, 3 people. At random. But in the past, he had expressed homicidal thoughts. And he had already been hospitalized for serious mental illness. Now, Rivera's mental health. There's those words again. That surfaced in this Penny trial, by the way, talking about Neely's mental health. Now, Rivera, he had many arrests, He ended up in Rikers Island in February. He was actually sent from Rikers to Bellevue to the psychiatric unit. He was there at least twice. And on May the 6th, he allegedly assaulted a correctional officer. Yep, assaulted a correctional officer May the 6th. But court transcripts, hearing 3 months later, they didn't even mention that. They didn't even talk about his mental health issues. He pleaded guilty in a court for a 364-day sentence. But if he had served that full sentence, he would not have been out to do what he did. You see, my friend, this man went out and killed 3 people. Killed 3 people. And instead of remaining at Rikers until February, said they used their good behavior standard to release him. On October the 17th, he had served about 2/3 of his sentence. But then a month later, just recently now, his attacks came on. Police said the first stabbing, it occurred at 8:22 a.m. West 19th Street. A 36-year-old man there was stabbed in his stomach outside a construction site where the victim was working. He was pronounced dead. 2 hours later, officers responded to a 911 call of a man stabbed on East 30th Street. There they found a 67-year-old man, multiple stab wounds. He also died at the hospital. He had been fishing along the East River when he was attacked. And then just 30 minutes after that, a third attack. A woman, this time, stabbed near 42nd Street and 1st Avenue, 36 years of age. And she also died of her injuries. So here is 3 people. Now, Rivera, he was apprehended, arrested a few blocks from that scene. Blood all over his clothes, 2 kitchen knives. And they said Rivera actually confessed to the stabbings. Said he targeted victims who were alone, preoccupied at the time. That's why we always tell you to be aware of your surroundings. And he was arraigned and held behind bars and without bail. So think with me here. Now think about this. Here was Rivera. He was a criminal with a mental problem. Does that remind you of anybody? He had numerous run-ins with the law, yet still on the street endangering others. Does that remind you of anyone? Well, how about reminding you of Jordan Neely, who too had mental problems, who had many run-ins with the law, 42 arrests in all. You see, my friend, I believe that these 3 people would have loved to have had somebody like our hero to come to the aid and to have subdued Rivera, don't you think? Well, you say now, well, Rivera had a weapon. Neely did not. Yeah, Rivera had a knife, but how did anyone know that Neely did not have a knife when he threatened to kill people in the subway, when he said he did not care if he went to prison for the rest of his life? I'm telling you, my friend, some of these folks with mental issues are dangerous and can be deadly. You see, maybe we ought to be thinking what could have happened to people had Daniel Penny not intervened on May the 1st, 2023. You see, this is what proves what I've been saying the past 3 episodes. While somebody may be having mental issues, it does not mean they are not a danger to others. I'm telling you, this guy by the name of Neely, he was a ticking time bomb. And Daniel Penny had the courage to face that time bomb. And yet now he's charged with, criminally negligent homicide. All that for protecting other people. And the star witness for the prosecution, medical examiner Cynthia Harris, well, she said there's no doubt the chokehold was what caused the death of Neely. That was their star witness last week. And she ruled that even prior to getting the toxicology reports back. Well, guess what? Guess what, my friend? In the defense trial of Daniel Penny, they too called their own expert to the witness stand this past Thursday. The defense called Dr. Chandru. He's a forensic pathologist. He's an expert witness. He told the jury that he had performed more than 9,000, get that, more than 9,000 autopsies. And Chandru, who is now called by the defense, he testified he looked over all the material in the case, all of it. He took it all in. He just didn't make a snap decision like this other Harris did. He looked at all the material, and it was his opinion, his opinion, the chokehold did not cause death. You see, Dr. Cynthia Harris, the medical examiner who performed Neely's autopsy, she previously testified and ruled that the death compression of the neck, she did that even before having the toxology and other reports back. By the way, she was in that gallery listening, as Chandru this week told jurors that in a complicated case like this, he would need the results of all of those tests. He'd need to know about the history, the toxology, the genetic testing, the psych records. He'd have to have all of that in order to rule on the cause of death. Then the defense asked, well, the fact that someone is restrained in a position of a chokehold and dies, does that make it a chokehold death? Chandru replies, no. Then the defense got right to it. They said, did Mr. Penny choke Mr. Neely to death? Again, the defense expert Chandru says, Dr. Chandru says, no. And then he went on to explain. He said in order for it to be a chokehold death, you have to put enough consistent pressure to render someone unconscious and sustain that pressure for an extended period of time. Then he used a diagram. He used the video of Penny and Neely from the subway. He told the jury it did not appear that Penny applied a proper air or blood choke. Now, earlier this week, Harris had testified Neely had K2 in his system, and also that he had single-cell trait, but he said those did not cause death. But Chandru comes back to the jury. He says that he believed the cause of death was the combined effect of the sickle cell crisis, the psychotic episode, the struggle and the restraint, and the K2, very powerful synthetic marijuana, almost like cocaine. Now, Dr. Chandru also said that there have been deaths linked alone to either this type of psychotic break or K2 or single-cell crisis. He even cited a report that was just published last week. So then the defense attorney asked, if we removed all the health and drug issues, would he have died if we remove all the drug and health issues? And Dr. Chandru says no. Now, in cross-examination, prosecutors, they pointed out Neely's official cause of death. They said it was unanimously agreed upon at the consensus hearing among the city medical examiner's office. Dr. Chandru, he comes back and he says, hey man, I've worked in 20 offices, and it was shocking to him that they issued the cause of death so soon in this case. In other words, he is saying that the prosecution, that the medical examiner, that they rushed to judgment, and that his judgment, taking his time, looking at all of the circumstance in its totality, was that Daniel, that he did not cause the death of Neely alone. It was a combination of all these things. Wow. Now, this testimony, as you can imagine, came to a surprise to many that were in the courtroom. It certainly knocked the blocks out from the star witness of the prosecution. Prior to this testimony, well, the expert witness, the medical examiner, said the chokehold was the cause of death. Now, if we believe this witness, that Penny restraining Neely in a chokehold, we have to realize that now it was combined with the excessive drug abuse, the single cell, and his psychotic condition. In other words, my friend, the fact is this: Neely was his own worst enemy. He had already done these things to himself, and you are not doing justice to take and pin this death on a man who came to the rescue of women and children on that subway on May the 1st, 2003. Now this, my friend, was a testimony, the block-busting testimony that stunned the court this past Thursday. In this case, my friend, I do believe that this jury must come back with a rendering of not guilty. I believed it before the testimony of the expert witness, Dr. Chandru. I believed it even before he got there. And I believe it right now more than ever. In fact, my friend, this jury, in my own opinion, would have to have their own heads examined if they vote to convict Daniel Penny. Now, here's my prediction. My prediction is they will not bring a charge of guilty. Now, there may be a hung jury because all it takes is one person to hold out. But I don't think there's any way in the world this jury will come back with a guilty plea. Now, on the other hand, we all got to admit, juries can be unpredictable. Will this one? Will they do what the O.J. Simpson jury did? Yep, just this week. I was reading where a couple of jury members on the O.J. Simpson jury admitted that they voted to release O.J. Simpson all because of the Rodney King incident. In other words, O.J. Simpson's jury felt, they were to make a statement against racist cops rather than try that case on the merit of the case alone. They said they did not trust the police. It was all about trusting the police, not about the case and the evidence with the O.J. Simpson. This could happen. It could happen. In this case, the background's already there. You see, the Marine, he is white. Neely is black. Even the protesters in this case. You can see them out there, and they have signs against the police, even though the police was not involved in the death of Neely, even though this was just a citizen, somehow, some way, some in the media, the liberal politicians, well, they're all using that race card. And in the balance is the freedom of a man who, in my eyes, is a hero. He stood up to protect people on that subway. He protected people from a violent rage of a mentally unstable man. Folks, I got to tell you, this trial's important. The results of this trial is important. However, we're not really going to know the results. We're not going to know it this week. It, in fact, won't be until after December the 7th. That's when they're going to deliver the closing arguments. They have yet to hear the closing statements from both the prosecution and the defense. Then they will decide. What do you think, my friend? Will they come back with guilty or not guilty? Or will perhaps it be a hung jury? Let me ask you another question. How long do you think it will take them? I believe the longer they take, well, the more chances it's going to be a hung jury. Yet, I think they ought to go in there and come right back with the plea, not guilty. But what say you? What are you saying? We'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us with a shout-out. CharlieCrimebuster@gmail.com. CharlieCrimebuster@gmail.com. Let us know what you are thinking about this case. And don't forget, my friend, later on this week, in fact, we're going to do it early this week because of the holidays, we're going to be releasing the Charlie Crime Talk on YouTube. That's where James Buckland, our producer, and myself, we talk about this podcast today. We give you a few more things that are not included on this as kind of a bonus. So just go to YouTube, YouTube/Charlie Crimebuster, YouTube/Charlie Crimebuster, and you can hear James and I as we discuss the episodes every week that we drop. And if, my friend, you're following us in real time as each episode is released, let me be the very first to wish you and yours a happy coming Thanksgiving. I hope you have time to enjoy your family. And I believe it could well be said that there are those today that are going to be enjoying Thanksgiving with their family because a brave man stepped up, this young Marine, to try to protect others that were on that subway. So until this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, stay alert, stay safe. For the life you save, it may well be your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. You can find additional podcasts at charliecrimebuster.com. You can also support our first responders, military, and law enforcement communities at peacemakernetwork.com, or subscribe to our YouTube channel using tag @CharlieCrimebuster. Even visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/CharlieCrimebuster. Or if you would like to make suggestions for future podcasts, please send your ideas to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you will join us next week for another exciting crime story with Charlie Crimebuster.